This episode is proudly supported by Pepisea Australian Cultured Butter, batch churned from single origin cream.
Like any good product, you have to start off with an amazing cream. Like for us, it's the raw material that matters. So where we get our cream from matters a lot. So we can't just buy your average supermarket grade cream. So you need real cream. You need basically the stuff they skim off the top of milk at a farm. And to get that product, we have to go to the farmers direct. So for us, we have to source our cream very carefully. We travel a lot to different farms to make sure that the cream we're getting is the real deal from different areas of Australia.
For more information, go to pepisea.com.au.
Well, I've never self-funded anything myself, so it's always been with partners. So I suppose, there's a fear factor in there. But again, I feel confident about the product that I give and how I want that to be put out into the market. And I don't think it's just going to be another eatery. I think it's going to be something more than that.
Opening a restaurant is an epic venture, a project that is always beset with ups and downs. It's a minefield of plans derailed, endless compliance, permits, unforeseen expenses, building snafus, supply problems, creative blocks, and staffing challenges. It's also about making dreams come to life, to see something in your mind's eye, to make it happen, and hopefully to experience the enormous satisfaction of bringing fresh joy to new customers. In this special series, we are following the journey of chef and restaurateur Martin Boetz as he works towards opening Shortgrain, an Asian food store, providore and eatery. Marty is going back to Brisbane where he grew up and he's planning to open in August. Let's see how he goes.
Hi, I'm Martin Boetz and I am going to share with you the start and the finish of building a new Asian food store and eatery, which I'm going to open in Brisbane in August. That is sort of the date that I really would like to start trading in. So it'll be a fun few months of talking trades and trades food and seeing if I've got enough money to actually open this joint up.
Martin Boetz is a leading Australian chef, a master of contemporary Thai and Southern Chinese food with a unique vision and energy. Perhaps best known for his 14 years at Locke, first in Sydney and then also in Melbourne, he was also lauded for his leadership at game-changing Sailors Thai, where he was the head chef for owner and Thai food maestro David Thompson. Marty's most recent venture was the Cook's Shed on the Hawkesbury, a produce-driven eatery and function centre which he ran for a decade. It was country, but it was far from easy.
I decided last year, sort of after the fifth flood in the Hawkesbury, to put my property on the market after 10 years of hard toil, really, and in doing so, it was sort of a few months that it took to sell the property, and so I was very fortunate to actually have all of my staff stay with me until the bittersweet end, and give a consistent product until we had our last service. And that was really an amazing part of finishing at the Cook Shed, because I was really worried about people dropping off and not seeing it through till the end with me. And I was really fortunate that happened. And I left the property on the 27th of September in 2022 and decided to move to Brisbane. So I stayed on the Gold Coast for about 6 weeks, and I also had some family stuff going on in Brisbane, so I could attend those things in that time, which was great, and also have a really good think about what my next chapter was going to be. I did actually have an idea in my head, and the idea was to go back to Asia, to my Asian roots, because that's something that obviously I had done for a long time previously at Locke and Sailors Thai and Darley Street Thai, so I'd sort of accumulated over 20 years experience cooking Thai food. So I thought, why don't you just go back and do that? And I do love it. And so my idea in my head was to buy a little corner shop and make my produce and jar curry pastes and make sauces and have a really tiny little eatery in the store and just sort of have a few staff and be a bit of a, just enjoy rather than be tortured by having another restaurant or having loads of staff. And in that process, I started looking at places that were for lease and for sale, and I came across this really great building in Fortitude Valley, and it had just been renovated by some developers back to its original facade, and the interior is just empty. It's just an empty shell, and I fell in love with it because it was sort of reminiscent of what Shortgrain looked like before we did anything to it, and also Shortgrain Melbourne. So it was a bit bigger than I thought, and it was just like, I think I really like this building, and so I decided to sort of see if I could secure it, and I just recently have signed the lease. So I signed the lease about 10 days ago. So instead of a little corner shop, it's actually quite a large 225 square metre site in an old building that was once a building that made linen and clothing, actually, in the mid-1850s, and then later turned into a big warehouse of Chinese goods, and it also had a Chinese supermarket in it. So it's sort of going back to its roots, really. And so the owners were really keen on me going in there. Well, because it was actually 2 tenancies, and I took both of them, the last 2 remaining, and so I have to put a kitchen in and toilets, and I've just had an architect and a friend of mine who is a designer design the space with me, and I'm really looking forward to getting this project underway.
Martin toiled at the cook's shed for a long, fun, hard, heartbreaking, satisfying, and at times unthinkable decade. When COVID rolled in, it was the toughest times of all. Or at least, that's what Marty thought, until the floods. He talks about the highs and the lows.
After 10 years of the cook shed, from farming the land to doing events without a kitchen and just doing makeshift events with, our best cooking tool was a paella pan. And then finally getting the kitchen built after a lengthy council battle to actually build a building onto the shed that housed the kitchen and bathrooms. And the funny thing was, the first event that we did which was a wedding on the 13th of March, 2020, and that was just days before Sydney shut itself down and everything sort of got shut down. And I sort of sat there in the new space thinking, what in the hell am I going to do now? And the girls who work with me, Madeline and Wendy, were with me, and I'd just crack a bottle of champagne and I'll cook some lunch and we'll just have to have a think about this one. But I was thinking about also chefs and looking at what chefs were doing in Europe, because obviously it had happened there already, the shutdowns and the COVID and everything. And I'm thinking, well, a few days later, I just couldn't think of what it was that we were going to do. I came back after hibernating for a few days into the shed and said to the girls, why don't we give takeaway a go? And so we got through COVID doing produce boxes, making curries, making different meals every weekend, selling those, value adding, using produce from around the area, including bread and eggs and school prawns and whatever I could get my hands on. to value add to the boxes, and people were really appreciative. And that is what got me through the COVID section. And then we had a lot of weddings that were backlogged that we were going to do. So we started doing those once we could do weddings again, and that's when the flooding started. And after the fifth flood, as I said before, I couldn't do it I just couldn't fathom cancelling any more events and refunding people's money. So I thought, you know what, I'm done. And all the staff said, we actually don't know how you actually got to this point and didn't give up. But it was a dream. It was my dream, and I didn't ever want to sell. It was a work in progress, and after 10 years to have the kitchen built, have some of the landscaping done, there was still so much more to do in my mind, like building a house and building a jetty, and so people could arrive by boat, and so many, and going back to farming as well, because I sort of gave that up to do the events because I just couldn't do both, and the events would have enabled me, and that was in the plan, to hire a proper gardener and have more of an infrastructure to be planting out the fields, and to utilise that the food from what we'd grown back into the menus that we were giving to the people at events and functions that we were doing. So yeah, it was a big decision, but after the flooding, I just couldn't do anymore. So I decided to sell, and luckily I actually did sell the property, and they are going to continue it on as an event space. So I wish them all the best of luck. I think the farm found me. It was something and it evolved, like with the old buildings and the big sheds and everything. I wasn't keen on those when I first saw them, but then a great friend, Victoria Alexander, suggested, why don't you make this into an event space? And that's when it started. Oh yeah, I could do that. Of course I could do that. But then, I was trying to get away from doing events because I wanted to farm. But I still had another big shed, so that kept all the machinery, and I had my office in there, and also had all the washing facilities and the big cool room. So that shed was being utilised for that. But then we had another big shed that could easily have been used for events, which then turned into the event space in the cook shed. I remember walking into Locke, Sydney, and I first saw that at the beginning of 1999, and it was just I drove in. The front door was actually a roller door, and you could drive into the space because it was actually a mechanics store for a while. So I drove into that big open space, and Sam and the other partner had everything measured out with tape and said, this is how the kitchen's going to be, and this is where the bar was, and that felt really good because I'd never seen a restaurant in an old warehouse before. And Melbourne was the same, but it was even bigger because we had an upstairs area that one day would have been a bar. And they all had really good, spacious feelings about them.
When we catch up with Martin, he's just signed the lease and he's feeling expansive and dreamy. He expounds his vision for Shortgrain. It's a new style of business for a new phase of his life.
The store's going to be called Shortgrain, bit of a nod to, the building used to be a Chinese storehouse and also a Chinese supermarket, plus also a nod to Long Grain, which I founded in 1999 and was head chef, executive chef until 2013. So going back to my Thai roots, I want to sell Asian green vegetables, and I want to have raw ingredients there, plus dry goods, plus my own product. And then you can eat there as well, as I said, and have a sympathetic wine list to Asian food. I think a lot of people struggle with or ask the question, what wines can I drink with this food? Because obviously some totally don't work with it, and then others do. And I want to curate a small list that I will sell in-house, as in to the dining customers, and also be able to sell those to people that want to take it home and have the whole experience at a dinner party at their place. So beer and wine, international list rather than just an Aussie list. And so it's a bit of a one-stop shop for a Thai dinner, for example, if you wanted to take it home. So if there's a curry that has protein in it that you can warm up, come into the glass cool room that you can walk into and pick the vegetables that will go into that curry and value add to it, and finish it with Thai basil, and you can make a relish or whatever, and this beautiful bottle of Gewürztraminer will go perfectly with your green curry of pork or whatever it is. Yeah, I'm just about to embark on a new phase of my life, but as I said, this project it's an Asian food store that has an eatery in it, and I want to focus on the food store and sort of do it 50-50. So it'll be food that I've always enjoyed to cook, and I just want people to just come in and have a bit of an experience in the store, and also in being able to come in and eat. A lot of people are asking if we're going to have a cocktail bar, and the answer is no. At the moment, you never know.
One of the major milestones in launching a hospitality project is negotiating and signing the lease. Martin tells us how he approached it.
Look, I really asked. I sat in the room 3 times and sat in there for an hour to make sure that the feeling I had was right. It wasn't just something that I was sort of feeling at a time. I made myself sit in that room, and every time I sat in there, it just felt like I wanted to be there and I wanted to do this project. It's in a really good spot just on the outskirts of the city and in the valley, so just near Chinatown what was Chinatown in Brisbane. And I had to ask myself a lot of times, is this what you really want to do? And the process was good. I had somebody negotiate the deal for me. So that was a friend of a friend, and then just everything sort of fell into place quite well. So it all flowed to a point where I signed the lease and felt really confident about what I was doing. Nothing was hard about it. And I also didn't have to go through council. So obviously I have to have council approval to do what I'm doing in the food section, but I don't have to have council approve it. It's already been approved to be an eatery restaurant/bar, so I don't have to go through that process again.
It's decades since Martin Boetz has lived in Brisbane. He has particular ideas about what he wants to bring to the city he grew up in, and he's relishing opening a business with family in the vicinity.
Brisbane's really grown up, and I think that there's definitely a space for what I'm doing. It's not being done here. I don't think it's really been done in Sydney or Melbourne either, as in a Thai food store plus a Thai eatery run by a white boy. So I'm hoping that with the design and everything, it will be something that people are saying, yeah, this is great. It's an experience. The experience should be about like you're coming into my home, and you can go into the kitchen and you can eat here, and there's a sense of being looked after. So, and Brisbane, I grew up here, and I've come back because of some family issues, and which are fine, and I'm glad to sort of have some family around me again, because I didn't sort of have that in Sydney, and I'm looking forward to doing this project. But again, it's a big city, and it's grown up, and things are happening here. So I'm really happy to be once again part of like a city's eating scene.
In many ways, what business owners decide not to do is more important than what they say yes to. Martin talks about the challenges of staying on brief and on budget.
There's always a challenge. I think the challenge for me, and I keep telling myself this every day, is don't turn it into a restaurant. Like, it is an eatery, but it's also a store. So, and I know myself, I'm generous and I want to make everyone happy, but I want to be able to give that experience of two things. So that's my own challenge for myself. And also I'm on a tight budget, so I need to make sure that I don't go overboard in fixtures and fittings. But I still want it to be pretty because I'm going to be there all the time. And it is an old, beautiful building, and it has got the most amazing windows. So the aesthetic is there as, you know, high ceilinged, big windowed room that is going to be a really good space for both of those eatery plus shop things. So I'm I just want to be sympathetic to what it is, what it was, and just being very careful on choosing my finishes.
There is romance and excitement about opening an eatery and food store in his old hometown, but Martin Boetz has to be canny about the business side. He talks about the nitty-gritty and the importance of getting expert help where necessary.
To have survived COVID and being on a farm in, you know, quite a long way out of Sydney and being able to get through that section without, well, it was always a struggle. I have to say, you know, in those last few years, I didn't pay myself. I just paid the staff and paid my mortgage and everything else. So it'll be nice to be able to have a wage again. And my thing, and I've said this, and somebody once told me, always surround yourself with the right people because you can't do everything. And I've got a wonderful accountant and bookkeeper and somebody back of house to do all of my recipe testing and also costings. And because that's not my forte, it's not my strength. I can write a recipe, sure. I'm very generous, so I just want to make sure that I stick to a plan and also because we're putting things in jars and wanting to sell curries in Tetra Packs and whatever else I'm going to put in the shop section, it does have to stick to a formula because I'm not going to be making everything, and people do have to read recipes and make sure that everything's consistent. So that's going to be a challenge as well. But with the right equipment and the right kitchen facilities and making sure that everything runs smoothly, I'll be there I'll always be there all the time at the beginning, as I always am. I think, it'll work.
Keeping costs reined in is crucial for any new business. Martin talks tin tax. I
have got a budget because I'm self-funding, and it's $750,000, and that's what it has to. I have to open the doors without spending any more than that. I have to trade only having spent that. I built the farm kitchen, and obviously that was more than just. It was a building plus everything inside it. It wasn't tables and chairs because I already had bought that. But building a building from scratch, that was $1 million. So I'm hoping that 750 will furnish, build, fit out the kitchen, employ, and get us going. And also there's an incentive from within that from the landlord, which I can't really say, but that's within that 750, which is great. Plus, I have 3 months rent free when we start trading. So I've got an architect and a designer, and I've had to do a new logo. Well, obviously started looking for a new logo, which I've just signed off on, and also there's fees that go into, with the architect, not just his fees, but for the council to come out and make sure that the building's all certified. The certifier has to be paid. Also, a structural engineer for the hoods and everything that need to be fitted into the kitchen. And I think the structural engineer also has to work out where all the plumbing's going to go. So that is another fee. So fees to date, approximately, I've already spent to $35,000 without doing anything. And then I've had to also pay a bond of 3 months' rent. So yeah, we're already over 100,000 spent. It's my money. I'm trying not to. I don't want to borrow any money.
There are benefits to being self-funded, but it's also scary. How does Martin balance the delights of independence with the terror of no safety net?
Well, I've never self-funded anything myself, so it's always been with partners. So even at the farm, I did have some silent partners to help me build my kitchen. But the land itself was my property. So there's, I suppose, there's a fear factor in there. But again, I feel confident about the product that I give and how I want that to be put out into the market. And I don't think it's just going to be another eatery. I think it's going to be something more than that. So I think it's always for me, a point of difference. Like the farm was something that I've, even though other people had done, farm restaurant-y things in other parts of the world, I really depended on locals during the time of the COVID and also the flooding, and I was really supported really well by them. And I'm hoping that in the area where Shortgrain's going to be, I'll be again supported by locals because they'll love coming in and maybe just having a curry and rice and a glass of wine and grabbing something to take home for the next day or whatever, and have that feel. I want it to have that feeling where they feel comfortable to come in whenever they feel like it, really.
Working towards opening means addressing a long list of things to do, day by day, week by week, month by month. Martin shares what's next.
Over the next weeks, I am getting elevations drawn by the architect, finalising the actual space, what it will look like, kitchen equipment, pricing. I'm trying to do only induction in the kitchen. So I'll be one of the first restaurants, maybe in Australia, to have induction woks. So that's something through a company called B&S. I've always bought my woks through them, so they've just got a new prototype coming out of induction wok. So I'm hopefully going to be using those in the store. And just sourcing furniture and that sort of thing. So the next few weeks is just kitchen and layout and finalising drawings and getting quotes from builders.
Stay with us over the coming weeks and months as we follow Martin Boetz and the development of Shortgrain. Will he stay on budget? Will the curveballs come? And will he be able to stay true to his vision as he gets closer to offering hungry, spice-loving Brisbaneites rice, curry, a glass of wine, and some more curry paste to take home? This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta @Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.